All right, so Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter, has officially, after only about like a week or two, resuspended the Twitter account of Kanye West, otherwise known as Ye. So here from CNBC, they say Elon Musk suspends Ye's Twitter account after swastika post. Okay, so, I'm sure some of you guys saw what went down yesterday over on Twitter and on the Alex Jones podcast, which Kanye West obviously went on with his buddy Nick Fuentes, the open neo-Nazi. And essentially we have a shit ton to get into in this video because Kanye West basically completely flew off the handle yesterday with a bunch of different wild anti-Semitic takes, blasting on Twitter, and, saying some, let's say, questionable things over on the podcast that he was on yesterday. So I was watching some portions of it live, and this was really one of the most wild podcasts that I've ever seen in my entire life. As somebody who used to listen to Kanye West, I still listen to him sometimes, but I've been a Kanye West fan for a while now, since I listened to some of his albums when I was growing up, but never did I ever expect that this type of a turn was going to take place with Kanye West. Okay, so first I'm just going to show you a couple of the things that potentially went into him getting banned off of Twitter. So again, lots to get into here, but here from Jeff Pilkington, he says Kanye just shared a text from moments ago from what appears to be Elon Musk to him saying, "Sorry, but you have gone too far. This is not love," to which Kanye apparently responded, "Who made you the judge?" So what he was talking about here is essentially yesterday on Twitter, while this podcast was going on with Alex Jones, or maybe after the podcast had finished, Kanye took to Twitter to post, I guess, what is like a combination of the Jewish Star of David and the swastika. Okay, so that's where Kanye West is at right now. Then, of course, you had the response from Elon Musk, who says, "Sorry, you've gone too far. This is not love." And, then he proceeded to take him off of Twitter. We also had this post, which was thrown up by Kanye as well. He says, "Let's remember that this is my final tweet." And it was basically just a picture of Elon Musk, which went viral a couple of months ago, of him getting like hosed down on one of his yachts, I guess. And, there's a lot you could say about Elon's body in this, but not going to get into that right now. He posts sort of what seems to be like a cope response down here, saying that is fine, but of course Kanye then got banned pretty soon after that. I definitely think it was more so to do with the swastika and open anti-Semitism posting, and not so much this picture, but who knows? It's Elon Musk. He gets to make these decisions now based entirely on a whim. So could have been both of these, could have been a combination, but I guess we'll never know at the end of the day. But there was another thing that went down while he was on the podcast with Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes, where he essentially was like just passing around his cell phone, which had his Twitter account open, and was literally letting Nick Fuentes, this other weird January 6th, promoter guy who was on the podcast, and Alex Jones himself, letting them all just straight up post tweets from his Twitter account. One of those posts was like straight up promoting the InfoWars, account, or the InfoWars website, where he sells all of his snake oil salesman bullshit supplements. And so basically you're allowing somebody like Alex Jones, who Elon Musk previously had come out and said he definitely was not going to allow back on the platform. And essentially you're doing account sharing with Alex Jones, and not only, letting him post some sort of like vague right-wing tweets or something like that, but straight up allowing him to promote his bullshit supplements. So this in and of itself, I think, would have been enough to technically violate the Twitter terms of service and get Kanye banned. But of course, then he went on the additional anti-Semitic tirades. So with that being said, that was the Twitter background. Now I want to get into some of these absolutely wild clips from the podcast itself. So disclaimer here, obviously Alex Jones has been banned from YouTube. I'm not sure if this video will get taken down or demonetized or something like that. But, obviously I don't agree with Alex Jones. I don't agree with Kanye West. I think they're both, anti-Semitic pieces of shit. Obviously, Alex Jones with the whole Sandy Hook controversy, he's had to pay millions and millions of dollars to the families after he drum up a bunch of conspiracies surrounding that being a false flag, and he's faced some consequences for that. So with that sort of like disclaimer laid out there, let's just go ahead and get into some of this. So this first one is basically just going to summarize what you're going to see in these next couple of clips, where Kanye was just straight up saying, like, "I love Hitler, I like the Nazis, I am a Nazi." So let's just go ahead and get into this first clip here.
Do I round up Jews in Nazi Germany? Do I get love then? Schwarzenegger said he loved Hitler. They gave him an award. I'm just saying, I don't like Nazis, and I don't like what some of the mafias are doing either.
I like Hitler.
Okay, so again, I like Hitler. He's just straight up saying it at this point. Now, you could sort of, I guess, kind of make the argument, and he talked about this during the podcast, that like he thinks that he's making this broader point about how he, throughout his career, throughout his life, have been like has been broadly labeled as different things and called out for different characteristics that he doesn't believe actually apply to him. And so now that people are calling him anti-Semitic, now that people are calling him a Nazi sympathizer, he's just doubling down and feeding into that, sort of as like a semi-sarcastic joke. But at the same time, if you actually look at what he has said over the last couple of weeks, as he is clearly having a massive mental breakdown, which obviously is not an excuse for the anti-Semitism, but if you look at the broad scope of everything that he has said over the last number of years, I mean, this shit goes all the way back to like 2017, 2015, with other reports that we've gotten. There was that like TMZ interview where they cut out portions of him praising Hitler as well. So this is stuff that goes back years. This is not this Nazi praise, this praise for Hitler is not something that just came up with this most recent mental breakdown, but now you have him just, I guess, basically coming out and screaming the quiet part out loud. And the most entertaining part about all of these interviews that he has been doing recently, especially this one with Alex Jones, is that I think a lot of these right-wing pundits have been bringing him on their shows thinking that like, okay, maybe the media is overhyping these Nazi accusations, maybe this is just part of the left being crazy and radical and calling everybody a Nazi even when they aren't. And so they've brought him on the show thinking that Kanye has the same ability that they have to use dog whistles and to use, other types of rhetoric where you're not just coming out and straight up praising Hitler or saying you love the Nazis. And so they've assumed that he has the same sort of rhetorical tricks in his bag that they have and that they use on a regular basis. And then they bring him on the show and find out that like, no, he absolutely does not have any of those skills, and he's just going to come out and say it. So basically this entire interview was like Alex Jones mildly trying to push back against the open Nazi praise, against the open praise for Hitler, and Kanye West every single time just completely doubling down on it. So it was wild to see all of this unfold. I got another one here from Mark Lamont Hill. So he says, Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, just went on Alex Jones. On the topic of Nazis, he said, they did good things too. We've got to stop dissing the Nazis all the time. So let's just go ahead and jump into this clip here.
Cities and attack Republicans and celebrated Rand Paul and Scalise being shot and attacked, then you have your free speech. And when the left came out in the last 10 years and really accelerated the last 5, 6, and said white people are inherently evil because of the color of their skin, and that somebody who moved here as a kid from Poland, they're supposed to pay reparations for what people did hundreds of years ago in this country. It's a divide and conquer strategy. I'm not getting into the reparations debate. I'm saying the groups pushing reparations are trying to cause division. And so I've said it, the most Nazi-like activities I've seen, and the Nazis, in my view, were thugs that shook people down, did a lot of really bad things.
But they did good things too. We're going to stop dissing the Nazis all the time.
Okay, we're going to get to that.
Man, I mean, yeah, I mean, you see right there exactly what I was just talking about, right? He thinks that Kanye has the same ability that he does to like, try to come out with this rhetoric about, it's actually the left. They're the real Nazis. The most Nazi-like behavior that I've seen has actually been coming from the left because of something reparations, I guess, and Polish immigrants and black people in this country. He's trying to make this deflection and trying to actually help Kanye and be like, listen, man, you're not actually a Nazi, are you? And Kanye basically just says like, no, I actually think that there were a lot of good things that they did and that we should stop dissing the Nazis. Okay, so I mean, I don't think I've ever seen, I don't think there's ever been an instance where Alex Jones is actually, the slightly less crazy figure in a political conversation, but Kanye West has somehow, managed to pull that off, and it's absolutely wild to see. We had another one here where basically Alex Jones gets into some very uncomfortable laughter as a reaction to another one of the things that Kanye said during this. Let's just go ahead and jump into this one now.
Oh my goodness. Just because you don't like one group doesn't mean the other. But look,
I love Jewish people, but I also love Nazis.
Oh man. Well, I have to disagree with that. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so I mean, again, if you can make Alex Jones uncomfortable with your right-wing extremism, I mean, it's almost impressive in some sense, right? I mean, I've never seen anybody that has the ability to outflank Alex Jones from the right, but somehow, again, Kanye is pulling it off, and in the meantime, making Alex Jones, extremely uncomfortable in the process of it. But, I mean, again, this whole situation with his mental health and stuff, I gotta take here from Ben Shapiro in a second, which I actually think he makes a fair point in regards to Kanye, and, probably will be the only time that you ever hear me say that. But, in terms of his mental health breakdown, yes, obviously that's playing a role in this. Obviously this guy is like, somewhat manic right now, and he's not having coherent thoughts in his mind. But at the same time, that doesn't excuse being a fucking Nazi. I mean, how many millions and millions of people in the United States have some form of mental illness, or even mental illness that is similar to what Kanye West has? It doesn't inherently mean you dive down these right-wing rabbit holes and start praising Hitler or the Nazis. That's not how that correlation works there, right? So clearly, this is something that goes a lot deeper with Kanye West. But now we got this clip. Okay, so basically, again, Alex Jones desperately trying to defend Kanye West in a lot of ways and try to paint this entire situation as like, oh, this is an unfair attack from the media. And again, Kanye West just choosing to double and triple and quadruple down on all of this. So let's just go ahead and jump into this one.
I don't think Hitler was a good guy. I get the Hugo Boss uniforms, amazing. But I mean, just because you're in love with the design, you're a designer. Can we just kind of say, like, you like the uniforms, but that's about it?
There's a lot of things that I love about Hitler. A lot of things.
I don't think Hitler.
I mean, listen, at the end of that clip, you see, this little motherfucker, Nick Fuentes over there nodding his head in approval. I mean, Nick Fuentes is an open neo-Nazi. Like he doesn't even really try to hide the fact. But I mean, again, you have Alex Jones here trying to provide a little bit of cover for Kanye. And what they were talking about here is basically like, I guess Hugo Boss or something had some connection with the Nazis back in the day, and or they produced the Nazi uniforms. And so Kanye was coming out and saying, oh, the uniforms look dope. And Alex Jones is basically trying to imply like, oh, you just like the fashion side of it because you're involved in the fashion world. You don't actually like the Nazis. And Kanye, of course, turns around and he's like, no, I actually love Hitler, right? Really leaning into that, right? Making it explicitly clear what his thoughts are on the situation. So, I mean, that was that clip. Now, I think I got one more clip here for you guys. And I saved this for last because I think this one was kind of the craziest one of them all, the wildest one of them all. And you just got to wait for the end of this clip here because it has a little bit of a twist to it. So let's just go ahead and jump into this.
You're not Hitler. You're not a Nazi. You don't deserve to be called that and demonized.
Well, I see good things about Hitler also. I love everyone, and Jewish people are not going to tell me you can love, us, and you can love what we're doing to you with the contracts, and you can love what we're pushing with the pornography. But this guy that invented highways, invented the very microphone that I use as a musician, you can't say out loud that this person ever did anything good, and I'm done with that. I'm done with the classifications. Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler.
You're not.
I mean, what do you even say at this point? What do you even say? I mean, listen, we could get into like the specifics of what he's actually saying here, which also just inherently doesn't really make that much sense, right? He's claiming that Hitler somehow like personally invented highways. I don't even think that's true. I'm pretty sure that highways first appeared in the United States, but regardless, even if you wanted to talk about like innovations or corporations that operated under the Nazis, that wouldn't be to the credit of Hitler as an individual. He wasn't like an inventor. He was a, demon leader of one of the most brutal countries in the history of humanity, right? And this kind of reminded me of this old drill tweet from a couple of years ago where he was just basically making a joke and saying, I would like to, retract my previous statement. You absolutely do not, under any circumstances, gotta hand it to ISIS. And it's pretty much the same situation that Kanye is seeing himself in right now. And maybe in a couple years, he'll have that sort of like same reflection on all of this because, there's some people who you just straight up do not gotta hand it to, right? I mean, if he's trying to make the broader point that like, oh, I love everybody, okay, I kind of get that to an extent, but it's pretty much a direct contradiction, as much of a contradiction as you could possibly ask for, to say, oh, I love Jewish people, and also I love the person and the group and the military that was doing a systemic wiping out of the Jewish population. kind of like mutually exclusive things there, right? You can't say, oh, I want to spread love and I love everybody and everybody has things that you can love about them, but also I love the people who hated these other people and wanted to kill all of them and exterminate all of them. Doesn't really line up as a coherent moral framework, right? In any way, shape, or form. But I guess that's kind of the point that Kanye was trying to make there. And again, all of this is just playing into this same deranged Nazi, anti-Semitic, theory that Kanye West has latched onto. I mean, I think that he personally, throughout his life, has maybe interacted with some people who happen to be Jewish, right? Maybe it's like some of his attorneys that he's talked about, or some other people in the business world who he's worked with. And maybe he has gotten screwed over by some business people or by some lawyers or whatever the fuck, right? He could have that in the back of his head, but then he's taking that extra step and not just talking about how like capitalism has screwed him over or business has screwed him over or how he's been exploited by the music industry, which all of that would be a fair criticism, right? But then he takes that extra step and says, no, it's because these people are Jewish, and it's always Jewish people, which is also just completely incoherent. We live in a country that is like overwhelmingly Christian, okay? If you look at the richest people in the world or in this country, the vast disproportionate amount of them are Christian or Catholic or some other different branch of that religion, right? I mean, it's a tiny minority that are actually Jewish in this equation. I mean, we haven't even ever had a single Jewish president or anything like that, but then you'll see it in the rhetoric that he uses, and he'll say things like, oh, Trump had Jared Kushner by his side and he was Jewish, and Joe Biden has had this Jewish aid by his side, and Obama had this Jewish aid, and just trying to portray that as if it's some sort of like a grand conspiracy of the highest order that all of these people are in top positions of power, while completely ignoring the fact that the people who are actually at the top positions of power are not Jewish. I mean, if you wanted to come up with a conspiracy in terms of like dominant control by one religion, you could probably make a better case for Christians being in control of that than Jewish people being in control of that. But either way, obviously you shouldn't make that analysis along religious or ethnic grounds, because that's not how the fucking world works, okay? If you want to have a critique about, musicians being exploited or, businesses being exploitative of artists or musicians or fashion designers or whatever the fuck, that's fine. That would be a good systemic critique of capitalism in general, right? But he obviously doesn't want to take that route. He wants to take the complete antithesis to that route and dive headfirst into all of these fascist conspiracies. So that's basically just the rundown there in terms of what Kanye has been up to over the last couple of days. And even after all of this has gone down, he still has some of his simps. He still has some of his supporters who are latching onto this idea that somehow he's not anti-Semitic, right? I mean, it's pointed out here by Juniper. She screenshotted a couple of responses here after he got banned. So this guy, Elon Musk, said he did not incite violence. Where is the freedom of speech? This other guy, Nuance Bro, that's quite a name there, says it would not fly in court as an incitement to violence. How is that symbol an incitement to violence? He's talking about the swastika. How is the swastika, which was the symbol of the group that was literally exterminating an entire population, okay, how is that symbol an incitement to violence? I mean, I guess you could make a stretch of an argument that the symbol in and of itself, in a completely isolated way, isn't technically an incitement to violence, but like, if you're coming out here and telling everybody on a daily basis that there's some grand Jewish plot to try to destroy the country or to take you down, and that we need to fight back against this, and you're praising Hitler and you're praising the Nazis, that's kind of inciting violence. That's pushing people in the direction to which they would follow this ideology. They would follow this, this set of beliefs that inevitably leads to violence. I mean, that's what fascism is. That's what Nazism is. It is inherently violent, right? You're not just making some sort of like policy debate here, okay? You're not just like posting the symbols as like a, amorphous thing just because the symbol looks cool or whatever the fuck you think. You have an explicit political agenda here, and that political agenda is one that is inherently violent, right? So it doesn't really make much sense as a defense for me, but he says, as much as the pictures posted were in poor taste, how did he incite violence? So I mean, just all of these different people, right? It says posting a non-approved version of a Jewish star is inciting hate speech. Okay, calling that what we just witnessed over here, what this looks like, calling that a non-approved version of the Jewish star, really? And how is that inciting hate speech? Because it had a swastika in it. I mean, it had a swastika in it. That's kind of like the hate speech part of that. That he says the Jewish star and the swastika are both religious symbols. Okay, I'm pretty sure the swastika might have some ties back to like paganism back like hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and that's sort of where they like pulled the design from. But it's not a religious symbol in the same way that a Jewish star is a religious symbol. The Nazi symbol was co-opted, and everybody conventionally understands it to be a representation of the Nazis, not of some just like vague old pagan worshipping symbol or something like that. So again, he's still got people who are coming out, Nuance Bro coming to his defense, of course. Now, again, you will never hear me say this ever again in my life, but I think that Ben Shapiro actually made a good point here, okay? So this is what he had to say, right? Obviously, Ben Shapiro is Jewish. Obviously, he focuses a lot of his commentary surrounding anti-Semitism. Now, before I get into this tweet, Ben Shapiro does not have a good faith interpretation of anti-Semitism. He will equate the type of shit that Kanye West is saying about the Nazis and about loving Hitler, and then say that like the boycott, divestment, sanction movement is the same amount of anti-Semitism, or that like Ilhan Omar and Kanye West are on equal playing fields in terms of their anti-Semitism. So Ben Shapiro typically interprets any defense of Palestinian human rights or pushback against Israeli apartheid as equivalent to anti-Semitism. But with this take specifically in regards to Kanye West, he actually made a good point here. So he says, Ye is clearly suffering from a mental breakdown. It's an act of cruelty to have him on air at this point. He needs treatment, not a spotlight. He says, number one, Ye is a Jew hater of an extraordinarily high order, true. And he says, Ye is suffering a mental breakdown. These things are not mutually exclusive. And so he's actually right. I mean, again, it's one thing to say, oh, he's having a mental breakdown. He clearly, needs to actually get help. That's 100% true. But he's also just straight up anti-Semitic. I mean, he's also just straight up saying he's a neo-Nazi out in the open. So you can have both of those things existing at the same time. The first one is not an excuse for the second one, for the latter. Okay, so that needs to be understood there. But on his other point, in terms of like all these people who are having him on their shows, yeah, it is kind of fucked up. I mean, while he is a grown human adult and I guess can make his own decisions and speak as much as he wants to, at the same time, like all of these people, whether it's Alex Jones, whether it's Nick Fuentes, whether it's Tim Pool the other day after Kanye West ran away from his interview when he got mild pushback on the anti-Semitism from Tim Pool. I mean, all of these people who are bringing him on these platforms, they are kind of taking advantage of him because it's very clear that this guy is not in the right state of mind, right? And so they're doing this for clout, they're doing this for clicks, they know that it's going to bring controversy, and in the meantime, Kanye West is just completely obliterating any, semblance of credibility during his career that he managed to build up, and it's honestly kind of sad to see to an extent, but at the same time, if you're coming out here and praising Nazis, if you're coming out here and praising Hitler, my sympathy for you is going to be, running out pretty quickly.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best Politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying